In any programming, it must have a function called main. This one. When the program is run, the function main is executed. The code in main determines what your program does. No matter how much code you have written, if main does not, nothing, your program does nothing. Actually, if the input a stream, a cin or something scanf like that cannot acquire an integer, it provides the boolean value false and the enclosing if test succeeds. So this program in C language generally starts with main function and the executed from top down style, line by line. That means sequentially, one after another. Changing the order in which statements are executed is called program control. The program shows its structure clearly in the program listing. Different actions are placed in the different modules. This helps the programmer understand the program. It's very clearly separate. So because the functions are separate, each one can be modified or replaced very easily without any confusion. To avoid the confusion, we can write the program. This is a good practice of writing the programming anyway. The order of the action can be easily changed. You may easily substitute one module for another as in the above general shown the program, because they are independent of each other, and program each module may be exported to any other program and use it there. Okay. Generally, there are three types of programming controls: so sequentially, and selection process, and repetition process, and conditional checking. So like that, so many programming controls. So when are you going to use the programming controls or control statements in the programming? So completely the program will comes under our control. Control structures can be considered as the building blocks of computer programs. They are commands that enables a program to take decisions following one path or another. A program is usually not limited to a linear sequence of instructions, since during its process it may bifurcate. Repeat code or bypass sections. Control structures are the blocks that analyze variables and choose directions in which to go based given parameters. In sequential control structure, it's very simple statements are is there. The execution process will be one after another. So whereas selection structures we are using generally if statement, that is simple if statement, if else statement, and nested if statement. Switch statements also called as select statement, and repetitive. Next one is repetitive statements. It's also called as iterative statements and also called as loops, such as for loop, while loop, do while loop, like that. We're all the also we'll discuss next slides. the, this is repetition or iteration, which purpose is to repeat statements is there certain number of times or a condition fulfilled. We will deep dive using R programming language, but the same ideas and explain apply to the any programming language. Conditionals are at the very core of programming. The idea behind them is that they allow you to control the flow of the code that is executed based on the different conditions in the program. Generally, the if statement and if else statements are, that is the conditional based statements, are and decision making statements. Decision making statements. For example, take if statement. If statement executes one or more statements which a condition is met. If the testing of the condition is true, the statement gets executed. Very next line followed by the statement. Otherwise, if it is false, the statement will be skips. One more statement is if else statement is there. That is, this control structure flows a program follow the alternative paths of execution whether the condition is met or not, checking. And that means in if simple if statements were having only one possibility, and whereas if else statements were having two possibilities. This else part of the instruction is optional and only evaluated if the condition states false. If else statements can have multiple alternative statements in this a piece of code will go through each conditional until reaching true test results. This is a block of statements. That is also called as compound statements, and true block statement and false block statement, or if block and false block also can be called as. When it is true, it will execute the entire block of the statements whatever in the true block, and the same way if it is false, it is executes the whatever in the false block. It's one more thing is that is the looping statements are nothing more than the automation of multi-step process by organizing sequence of actions and grouping the parts that need to be repeated. Okay. Also, central part of programming, iteration or looping, we can call it as looping, gives computer much of their power. They can repeat a sequence of steps as often as necessary, and appropriate repetitions of simple steps can solve complex problems. In general terms, there are loops, three types of loops, and while loop and do while loop and for loop. And generally for loop are the one that executes for a prescribed number of times as controlled by a counter or an index. While loop and while loops and repeat loops are based on the onset and the verification of a logical condition. The condition is tested at the start or end of the loops. And in this for loop, in this control structure, statements are executed one after another in a consecutive order over a sequence of values. Sequence of S1, S2, S3, S4, like that, and sequence of values that gets evaluated only when the loop is initiated. In this case, the number of iterations is fixed and known in the advance. If the evaluation of the condition on a variable results true, one or more statements will be executed sequentially over that string of values. Once the first condition is done, the statement executed and the control and condition is evaluated again, going through an iterative process again and again. And the variable in sequence section performs this test, and each value of the sequence unit covers the last element. Of course, it is for each and every repetition of the programming, the counter variable will be incremented by 1. If the condition is not met and the resulting outcome false, the loop ends. If the loop ends, if the condition test results false in the first iteration, the for loop is never executed, and it will not see the for at least one time how it is body of the loop is. If you want to modify values or perform calculations sequentially, you can use for loops to perform some mathematical operations sequentially over each value of the vector. In same way, while loop also it is one more loop. While loop, a condition is first evaluated. It's also called as this is a entry controlled loop, and if the result is testing that condition is true, one or more statements are repeatedly executed until that condition becomes false. Unlike the statements, if statements at which condition is tested is true, executed an expression only once and ends. While loop are iterative statements that execute some expressions over and over again until the condition becomes false. Okay, if the condition never turns out to be false, the while loop will go on forever and the program will crash, and this is also called as infinite loops. That is repeats and repeats again and again. It will never stops. The condition becomes never false, and that continuously loops repeats. This is also called as infinite loops. And then the program will crash. The other way around, if the condition tested is false in the beginning of the loop, the expression will never get statements, never get it executed. So same way, one more loop is do while loop. In do while loop, it tests the and final stage it will test. It is the first time it is false in do while loop. At least the controls will be see that will be entered into the body of the loop and executes at least one time. And this also some languages is also called as repeat loops, repeat until like that. Some are in languages. This statement are executed at least once, no matter what the result of the condition is, and the loop is excited only when certain condition becomes true. And some loops, and depending on the situation, in loops we are using the break statement also. And break statement, as soon as the reads the break statement, the immediately the controls will come out of the loop structure. Break statements are combined with the test of a condition to interrupt the cycle within the loops. Since when the program hits a break, it will pass control to the instruction immediately after the end of the loop. We have seen and explained concept of the this control structures, and combined anyway, the loops may contain several internal loops That means we can use the loop, one more loop within the loop, that is called also a nested loop. So there is no limitations. First loop, second loop, third loop, within the loops we can use. Depending on the situation, we can use the more than one loop. No limitations we can use. Loops may contain in several internal loops. So the conditionals may contain loops, and the conditions, the options are endless. So you can develop advanced solutions, just become the control structures. Okay. Control structures constitute the basic blocks for decision making process. The control structures are just a way to specify flow of control in programs. Any algorithm or program can be more clear and understood if they use self-contained modules called as logic or control structures. It basically analyzes and chooses in which direction a program flows based on the certain parameters or conditions. Sequential logic, as the name suggested, flows as serial or sequence of flow in which the flow depends on the series of instructions given to the computer. Unless new instructions are given, the modules are executed in the obvious sequence. The sequences may be given by means of numbered steps explicitly, also implicitly follows the order in which modules are written. This condition we discussed in previous slides. If condition is there, then condition also called as, this is the test condition. This test condition is always enclosed in the parenthesis brackets. That is the rules in the C language. And if the test condition is true, the true block statement will be executed. That is very next statement of if statement is executed. And if the test condition is false, whatever in the bracket, if the test condition is false, the else block will be executed. The first the condition is evaluated. If it is true, the statement is executed, and if it is false, the next statement following the if statement block is executed. So during the execution, based on some conditions, some codes were skipped. See the example here. If hours is greater than 70, hours equal to hours plus 100, printf levels of hours, no bonus. If hours is less than or equal to 70, its equivalent will remain unchanged and the printf will be executed. If it is executed 70, its value will be increased by 100. If more than one statement is there in if block or else block, and we have to use the braces, that is also called as the compound statement or block of the statements. Will only be executed if job equal, else print. If condition statement, one statement, so then simple statement we are having only one possibility, whereas if else statement we are having the two possibilities. One is the true block and the second one is the false block. The condition is evaluated. First the condition is evaluated. If it is equivalent to non-zero, that is true, statement 1 will be executed. So that is also called as true block or if block. Otherwise, if it is evaluated to 0, of course it is false, the statement 2 will be executed. The statement 2 area is the else block or a false block. There are mutually exclusive, meaning either statement 1 is executed, statement 2 but not both. It executes only one. It may be either true block or false block. Only one block will be executed. It will never execute the both statements. Statement 1 and statement 2 can be a block of codes and must be put in the curly braces. For example, if my code equal to 1, rate equal to 7.20, else rate equal to 12.50. So if my code is equal to 1, the rate is 7.20, else if my code is not equal to 1, the rate is 12.50. That means rate 7.20 is in true block and rate 12.50 is in false block. So my code equal to 1 is the test condition. The test condition is true, 7.20 executed, and the test condition is false, 12.50 is executed. If else constructions can be nested, placed on within the another to any depth. The general form of if else and if else if statement is the if else construction has the following form. We're having only one possibility in simple statement and two possibilities in if else statement, and in this format we're having the more than two possibilities. See the differences and see the structure and syntax of this statement. Observe this slide. Here condition 1, condition 2, condition 3, condition 4, like that is there. So if the condition 1 is false, it will go to the condition 2. If condition 2 is false, it will test the condition 3, like that, one more one. So for the last is okay. So within the statement, this is also called as nested if. The if else if statement has the following form in three levels. Condition 1, condition 2, condition 3, like that. The if statements we can write within the one more if statements. The condition 1 is first evaluated. If it is non-zero, that means non-zero means always true. The statement 1 is executed and the whole statement terminated, and the execution is continue on the next statement. If the condition 1 is 0, that means false, control passes to the next else if and condition 2 is evaluated. Observe the slide. If it is non-zero, the statement 2 is executed and the whole system is terminated. If it is 0, the next else if is tested. If condition 3 is non-zero, statement 3 is executed. If not, statement 4 is executed. If not means else, that is not true, that means false. Note that only one of these statements will be executed, others will be skipped. Only one statement will be true, that's all. Statement X can be block of the statement and must be put curly braces. The most flexible selection program control. This is also switch statement. Switch statements also called as select statement. Switch means we can select one statement among the several statements. Here we are having more than two possibilities. The most flexible selection program control enables the program to execute different statements based on a condition or expression that can have more than two values, also called as multiple choice statements. menu based also, it can also menu based. The if statement were limited to evaluating an expressions that could have only two logical values, true or false. If more than two values, we have to use the nesting. The switch statement makes such nesting unnecessary. Use together to case and break statements. And case, break, switch, these are all the reservoirs. See the observe this switch statement syntax, the structure of the switch statement. Switch within the bracket condition or expression. If it is expression, we can use the only integer expression or character expression. Okay. So whatever in the within the bracket condition or expression, that value will be suited to case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, like that. If the condition is matched to any case, the statements will be executed. The statement will be executed. For example, case template 1 is suitable, that means match, the opposite statements block will be executed, and after that the break statement will be read. So as soon as reads the break statement, the controls will immediately come out of the switch structure. If case template 1 not match, it will go to the case template 2, and if case template 2 is not suitable, it will goes to the 3 and 4 and 5, like that goes on. If all cases matches will fail, and finally it will come to the default. If all case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, like that, if all cases matches will fail, and finally it goes to the default. Default is the optional case label. Default is the optional case label. If it is necessary, we can use. If it is not necessary, we can avoid it. Not compulsory. Default case is the not compulsory. If in between the statement blocks, if break statement is absent, it is unnecessarily, it reads all the statement blocks unnecessarily. So we can use the break statement. Evaluates the condition first and compares its values within the templates following each case label. If match is found between the condition and one of the templates, execution is transferred to the statements that follows the case label. If no match is found, execution is transferred to the next statement following the optional default label. If no match is found and there is no default label, execution process to the first statement follow the switch statement, closing the process, which is the next statement. To ensure that only the statements associated with the matching template are executed, including a break keyword where needed, which terminates the entire switch statement. The statement or statements can be blocked of code in currently process. The differences between nested if and switch. The switch case permits the execution of more than one alternative, where the if statement does not. In other words, alternatives in an if statements are mutually exclusive, whereas they may or may not be in the case of switch case. A switch can only perform equally tests involves integer or character constant, whereas the if statement allows more general comparison involving other data types as well. When there are more than 2 or 4 conditions, use the switch case break statements rather than a logical nested if else. When there are multiple options to choose from them, when condition only use the constants. So see the slide, and we discussed it clearly. Okay.